On the back straightaway, into turn number 3, thick thin, still 3 wide, Brandon Feeney, high, wide, and handsome. He's going to go to the outside and get past Milo.
I don't mean to be two birds and bees with you folks, but this is how cautions are born.
Welcome to episode number 35 of the podcast. Tonight's guest is Tim Tolton, also known as the InTIMidator, with a capital T-I-M, just so people don't get offended. We talked to Tim about how he felt about that nickname, and gray area is okay with the Tim in it. Yeah, once again, weekly recap. Not a lot going on in the off season right now, other than I'm bowling, trying to get stuff done. We've got some stickers made up for the podcast. We've got some stickers made up for our media drivers. If you're a driver that watches this, I'm working with Jomo Media. I'm doing an entry-level media package done by myself, as well as some work with Jomo. Like you get on the website, he's going to do you a racing calendar for the season, a few other things. Yeah, so if you want, you can message me. We're starting that price at $50. Jomo's got other packages available. He's sold as a gold at the moment, but does great work. He was my media guy while I was racing. Just he just honestly he's good at what he does, and I'm hoping to make him proud by doing my work. But it's also why I'm starting lower, and yeah, we'll see how I do, I guess. Yeah, so yeah. Sorry, just noticed the cat was sleeping beside me. Squirrel. But yeah, so talking with Tim here tonight. And it was a great conversation with Tim. I hope you guys enjoy it. And it really showed me talking with Tim tonight that there still is some opportunities in Ontario. And yeah, it made me smile knowing that old school, clean, respectful, hard racing can still be rewarded. And I can't wait for you guys to hear the podcast. Once again, any advice on who you want to see or etc., let me know. I'll try to get them on. If not, well, we'll see how it goes. And also, we're at Motorama this week. Actually, if you're listening to this, I might already be at Motorama. Come visit me. I'm there with the Boneyard Event Services Media Center. I'll be there. Stickers and Scuffs will be there. Jomo Media will be there. The Worldwide Motorsports, or the Wide World of Motorsports. Sorry, guys, I don't know your name. My bad. We'll be there. I think there's a couple others that are going to be there. So you get to come down. We're going to be doing short interviews. There's a few interviews up on stage. I'm not doing any stage interviews, mainly because I don't know what I'm doing. I am new to this. They might convince me by the end of the weekend to do one or two. We will see. But yeah, make sure you come out and check the Motorama car and racing show this weekend. March was it 8th through 9th at the International Center in Toronto. But yeah, without further ado, let's bring on Tim Tolton. Welcome to the podcast. This week we have Tim the InTIMidator Tolton. So I gotta first ask you, did you get the InTIMidator because of running the number 3 on multiple cars, or did you get that from your driving style?
It came from the OSS announcer years ago. And at first I didn't like the name because, the Intimidator was the Intimidator. But then when I saw it with my name in capitals in the middle of it, then I was liking it a lot more. Now I just accept it now.
It's a little bit different because it's got the capital Tim in there. You're like, all right, it's a gray area.
Yeah, my
racers,
name's in there, so.
Us racers are all about gray areas. So you've raced a lot of things. Currently, you race, I think, mostly the OSS series, but you've raced modifieds, mini stocks. What are some of the classes you've had the most fun in?
I love the OSS. I really do. That's by far my favorite. The modified I enjoyed, but I'm just not really a open wheel kind of guy. I also race Pro 4, which is open wheel, and they're a lot of fun also. A lot more power than you would think would come out of a four cylinder. I think OSS would have to be my favorite.
Yeah, you say the Pro 4s. I've seen them go around not Varney, Flamborough there a few times, and they look like a blast. Like they look like they're hauling down the straightaways. It seems to be with the smaller tire, that's actually what's holding them up is through the ends compared to like a 10-inch slick that you'd have on your V8 modified. It seems like they've tried to limit your horsepower and how fast the cars are through the tires, so it's I don't want to say safer, but you know what I mean? Like it's you don't want to have a four-cylinder modified go up and show up like an Omer S modified or an Oscar modified either in times, right? That was a thing for years that the mini stocks got so fast they stopped posting the times because they were faster than super stocks.
Right.
And so anyway, so you raced OSS for a couple years. Um, are you switching the livery up on the red number 3? Are you going to pick another scheme for this season, or is it keeping the familiar red?
Yeah, we're going back to black.
Going back to black this year?
Back to black. It won't be black and silver. It'll be black and white with blue highlights.
Oh, we're going like almost Earnhardt Oreo style.
That's the one.
See, I'm
Yeah.
getting good at this. I have a few.
Yeah.
So, Cam obviously from stickers and scuffs and grade and stuff. So I'm also a diecast collector. So I've got a bunch of diecast cars. Earnhardt was my favorite driver, obviously. So I've got like the last win car, and I've got like the Peter Mass car that he hated. I've got the 98 500 win car, bunch of cars. Anyway, before I talk about Earnhardt a lot. So you also have your Studebaker, which you just did a big remodel on. That you had Nathan there driving it down at Colors. Do you plan on driving that a bunch this year, or just let Nathan drive it, or?
Nathan's going to be the driver again this year of that car. I haven't penciled him in as the driver for the Oscar event yet. I'm leaving that open in case I do decide to, but I tend to get a little too busy to be able to drive the car. I actually haven't raced that car since it's been a hot rod. It was previously my first OSS car, is what it actually was. And when I got a new car, I converted that one to hot rod. I have practiced it. I've done some testing and some adjusting for a couple of the drivers. Tried to get a little quicker for them. But I haven't actually raced it yet.
I think maybe you got to get in that thing. Maybe it's whether the Oscar event, or maybe when you bring it down to Colors, make Nathan pit for you this time, and you race it. Unfortunately, it seems like every time he races at Colors, it comes back in pieces.
That's what he says. He always says sorry.
You know what? He's a good kid though. Like he's a hardworking kid, good kid. So it seems like he's got some talent. He's learning, and that's another thing I like with your hot rod there and your OSS car. You've been, I don't want to say hand picking, but you've been giving some drivers some opportunities, whether in the OSS or the hot rod. Do you see that as like you're helping the next generation of the sport, like trying to move them up and like give them experience maybe they wouldn't be able to get normally?
Yeah, it's part of the plan. give them a little taste of it, and if they like it, and then maybe they'll want to get involved themselves later. Most drivers who have driven it have shown serious interest in joining this series. They've enjoyed it. And it's kind of like a driver development program. I try to keep the new drivers in other cars instead of that one. It's kind of at the top of the
Echelon.
graduation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you get this good, you'll get to drive that car.
that's
But
right.
if you're just starting out, you get this one that looks like it's a golf ball.
Nathan did actually do some testing in the OSS car. When I invited him to do some testing in the hot rod, he didn't think I was serious, and he came and he tried it, and he came off the track, and I said, "What'd you think of that?" He said, "This is the best day of my life." And then I said, "You want to try the red one?" And again, he didn't think I was serious, but he said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And he went out in it, and not too quick at first, but he got the hang of it and got rolling pretty good. And he came off and he said, "No, now it's the best day of my life."
Yes.
I asked him what he thought of the two cars, and he said, "Well, the hot rod's nice to drive." He said the red one, it tried to kill me.
But when the car tries to kill you, that's when it's the most fun.
It is for me. It is for me.
I'm the same way. So like I've driven a bunch of cars. Like I started in bone stock. I jumped over mini stock originally to Thunder car originally. I bought Howie Crow's old bus that raced at Kawartha Speedway. If you probably raced it at some point in your life. But that was what was it? What was his name? Rod Marshall, I think, built that car at Peterborough.
Mhm.
So anyway, then I jumped into late model accidentally. I bought a car for parts, and I was off that night. Paul Senior from like North Bayish,
Mhm.
had it in a barn. He goes, "I'll deliver it to you if you pay the price up front." And I'm like, "Listen, if you deliver it, I'll send him the money." Brought it down. I'm like, "Man, I don't race tomorrow." I'm like, "But the car's 100% one piece." I'm like, "I have extra belts." I went and bought tires, so I raced it, and then well, I got hooked. So, I accidentally went to late models, then I drove like legend cars. But yeah, I've driven a bunch of
Yeah, you've
cars.
been through a lot of things.
Yeah, way too many cars. So I was actually hoping to try to get into with OSS last year, or I'm still possibly looking at maybe renting a car this year for the
Mhm.
Peterborough race because I'm not racing full time this year, obviously, because just budget's not there. It's unfortunately racing is getting more and more expensive as every year goes on. So anyway, enough about me. Uh, so with having the OSS and the Studebaker and the hot rods, what's one way you can keep the program going? Like, do you rely mostly on sponsors, or like, do you have like, do they rent the car, or like, how do you keep your program going where it's keeping going for the kids and stuff?
I don't do a rental program. I won't do a rental program. Anybody who drives for me drives as a favor for me. Uh, I don't charge them. I don't. Some drivers have offered, and I appreciate it, but it's not. It's not like pay me and you can come and drive. I am quite selective of who gets in the cars. I don't just. I get people asking all the time, and it's not just a wide open invitation. I watch drivers. There's things I see things I liked, and they're going to be under consideration. If there's things I see that they do that I don't like, then they may not get considered. There's a long list of drivers that I do trust in my car, but I've been quite selective and chosen the ones that I did for specific reasons. There was one race that I had trouble finding a driver. I really don't know why, but I guess I just left it too late, and then the drivers that I was asking weren't available.
Yeah, and after so many times you getting told no, and it starts because you don't want to ask a bunch of people at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Because then if you have three guys say yes, it's like, well, two of them I'm an asshole now, and then one guy's and then like you know what I mean. So you kind of
Yeah.
have to ask, give a little bit of time, ask, give a little bit of time, we're getting an answer. And I had that situation, I want to say it was 2016 or 2017 when Frostfest got pushed back. I ran my bone stock in mini stock and bone stock that day, missed the bone stock feature. That was the one that I think was Hartman went through the fence and they had to postpone it to the next weekend.
Yeah.
And I qualified for the mini feature in the, so I'm like, makes no sense whatsoever. I brought my bone stock, missed the bone stock field, and then made the mini stock feature. And I'm like, okay, so I had the Fall Brawl Demolition Derby the same weekend, which I'm not gonna let somebody drive my derby cars because I had a lot of fun doing that.
Mhm.
And all the racing, when you want to hit somebody, you can actually do it in the derby. It's a, I found it was a good balance. Like you could sit there and you can learn to when to pick your shots and stuff like that in derbies, but it can keep you like there's a few drivers that like myself when I first started racing, I get frustrated behind the wheel super easily. And then I didn't know how to channel that properly.
Mhm.
As a racer with experience, as nicely as I can say that, you've I'm assuming learned that as well. Like somebody will like come down like to chop you off, and when you're first starting racing, it's like, oh, that guy, I'm gonna freaking, you're gonna go burn your stuff up, which you can't do in OSS because you have longer races. Sorry, this is like a squirrel rant, but so let's go back to this. So if a younger racer getting in, what's something you could do as a driver and as somebody that's, been selective, put drivers in your cars? What's something they can do inside the car to kind of improve? It's like maybe possibly start moving up the steps or be a driver of consideration.
Well, you really do have to keep control of your temper. It's easy to lose it, and it usually doesn't end well. Um, I've learned to do that over the years. I hear people tell me all the time that I'm a much more laid back driver now than I was at one time. But a big thing is learning the car and understanding what you need. If a driver can give me some feedback on what the car is doing, I can help them get the car better for them. But that's probably the hardest thing about racing is learning what you need to get better. What as far as anger, you got to keep that in check. It, I don't like to take a situation into another event, right? If something's going to happen, it's going to be in that one. Don't come into the next one thinking, oh, I'm going to get that guy, because it's, you might as well just not bother.
Yeah, I kind of towards the later part of the last few years, like I I had some issues where I kind of jumped up to late model too fast before I had the experience of like especially like closing rates. Like if you're really fast in late model, how fast you catch somebody in the corner, it's you're just not prepared for checking up or sometimes you accidentally get in the back of somebody. And I had a friend that I asked him when I was first starting. He tried to do a little bump and move the guy out of the way, and he ended up turning him. And my question was, why'd you hit him so hard? And then in the middle of the race, my late model race, I did the same thing. I got on the guy a little too hard. I wasn't even meaning to hit him. He just kind of checked up in the middle corner. I turned around and he goes, why'd you hit him so hard? I'm like, I understand now. And it's, but this is what it comes down to is I find drivers that are veterans of the sport will have more respect for drivers that kind of take their time to feel out equipment instead of you have like say a younger driver that gets a really good car and then without practice or anything just goes full send and like gets the car sideways or starts burning the stuff up like like you were talking about with Nathan there where he kind of started slowly figuring it out and slowly pushing it. Like I find you can learn more from the car and what you can do with the car if you slowly push up to it. But if you start going too aggressive too fast, you burn the car up. So for later, it's not there.
Right.
So, what are some of your advices for people that are short, like used to like a 25 lap feature, to like what they could do to get into like 100 lap feature? Like, what do they have to do differently in the car, maybe mentally, physically, prep wise?
Well, obviously, you got to be prepared to conserve some of your car. don't go all out right off the bat. You can't, or you'll have nothing left at the end. You still have to drive hard, because if you get too far off, then you're going to need a lot more than you're going to have available at the end. But just, I don't know. I've taught myself, wasn't an easy thing to do, but I've taught myself to just reserve a little bit. Maybe not even might have the best car in the field, but don't worry about it. Don't show it. Save it until the end. Wait until the other cars have used up what they've got. Just got to think ahead.
Yeah, and that's something I find as you get experience of there's the race how you get raced, right? So that's a big thing, is because at a certain point, yes, you don't want to be aggressive to everybody and stuff like that, and you don't want to cause issues. But at the same time, you can't let somebody run over you because they'll just keep doing it. You kind of have to, but that stems into the don't carry it over in the next event. If somebody's over aggressive one race, you maybe put a door, like you run them tight, like Peterborough. If someone dives it in, you run him tight where he has to hold that bottom. It doesn't have to be dirty or anything like that, but it has to be like you have to earn back the respect that someone just lost, or vice versa. Like I've had issues where I've accidentally turned somebody, and that's what I liked about like the gentleman's rule. I don't know if you've heard about that at Peterborough, where if you like stop the start finish line, you tap the roof and you give them their spot back, and you go to the back by yourself.
Yeah.
Could you see
Yeah,
like
I like that idea. We started using it at Full Throttle last season, actually.
could you see like OSS maybe like adopting that? Because I've always got told that's a drivers slash gentleman series, and that's kind of like one of those things that you guys all race pretty respectful. Obviously, it's still racing and accidents happen, but like, do you see something like that can maybe getting adapted into a series like that?
I've had short discussions with officials about that, and they don't seem to have that much interest in initiating that rule. I think it should be. I really do, because sometimes things happen and you don't mean to do it, and you know you feel bad about it, and there's nothing you can do. But with that rule, then you can give the other driver the opportunity to get back where they were.
Yeah, and sometimes I think when you do that, it sends a message of like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it." So even that driver, so say I was the one that got spun and someone did that, I'd be like, "All right, guy didn't mean to do it." I'm instantly way less mad, because that's the same as if him coming over, whether I'm mad or not, and saying, "Hey, sorry, I screwed up." You know what I mean? That's essentially on the track apologizing,
Exactly.
which I feel like there's more people that need to kind of go back to doing that, because that's one thing I hate the most. I was looking at pictures the other day of me getting wrecked in my late model, and I'm like, that guy never even apologized. And like it was an innocent mistake. It was I think it was a night he just literally got squirrely on throttle up on a green flag, like a initial start, and just spun out and T-boned me. Never apologized, never nothing. It's like one of those things like, wow, that guy's a dick.
Well,
But
sometimes that's the case, but sometimes it's just simply that he realizes if he comes to apologize to you, it could be a conflict too, right?
at the same time, like sometimes there's a lot less fights than there used to be. There still is fights in racing. Sometimes they're deserved, sometimes they're not. I'm not going to condone or go against them because, well, sometimes they do need to happen.
Mhm. Yeah.
But yeah, that's without going too far down that rabbit hole. That's it. Sometimes if you screw it up bad enough, if you go over and apologize, the guy's most likely not going to hit you.
Usually.
It he would have to
Depends
be.
on how mad he is.
But if you go over there and apologize, be like, "Hey, I understand you're mad. I just want to say I'm sorry," and then continue walking on, at least
Mhm.
you've made the effort. And then if he wants to flip you the bird, you know what? Just desserts. But if he wants to usually fight you after that, just yeah, he was looking for a fight to come in anyway. Anyway, Tim, let's talk more about you. So you've raced for a long time. Why don't you go through all the divisions that you've actually run besides the ones I've listed?
Well, I've explained to a lot of people. I started out in an endurance car and ended up in a late model, and I didn't once intentionally move up a class. started with enduro, running just endurance races, long races, not very often. And then Varney Speedway started what they called the Junkyard Dogs, which was weekly racing for endurance cars. So I got involved in that. Then that evolved into street stock. Then street stock evolved into super street stock. And then I went to pickup truck just as something different and back to super street stock. Super street stock evolved into Challenger. Challenger evolved into limited late model. And I took my limited late model and ran in some pro late model races. So at no point did I actually move up a class. I was forced up. And I think I make it pretty clear to people often that I'm not a fan of evolution. A lot of guys or a lot of drivers will end up giving up because they just can't afford to do it anymore. They're at a point where they can afford. They don't feel it's right to move backwards. I think it's unfair to see anybody in a negative way for moving backwards. You should always compete at a level that you're capable of, and not go broken right out of the sport. That's not what we need, and it's happened way too much.
Yeah, like for example, I ran the super stock and the mini stock this year, and there's a few guys like mini stock is where you've had a lot of people like you have your cameras and stuff like that that will take a few years off of what they're running and come down to that just kind of to regroup, I think, before they move back to like Andy move back to mods and stuff like that. But like I had a few people that are like, why are you driving mini stock? You don't belong there. Like you're coming picking on the little guys. I'm like I have the car. It was originally supposed to be a rental car, and then I just didn't trust like it's one of those things that unless I trusted the car to make it through like 2 or 3 races with no absolute issues at all, I didn't want to give it to somebody else. Right. I'm sure you're the same way with your stuff. Like if you don't feel like it's gonna make it through the race, you're gonna feel like crap if someone's in the car and they felt like they broke something. But you want to work all the kinks out before well, most of the kinks. You can never fix everything in a race car because there's always a chance of something failing.
There sure is.
But there's even certain tracks have rules that once you pass a certain level, you cannot go back to certain classes, which I like that the fact that like Delaware has you can have a Joe Lawrence who's having starting a family, stays in racing by running bone stocks. And I find drivers like to be like, hey, I just beat Joe Lawrence. Sure, he's not in his pro late model, but you just beat one of the top drivers in the province head to head in a bone stock. Like I think it gives you your younger drivers somebody to race up to. I did
I
something.
agree.
I was talking with John from Jomo Media the other day about talking about the guys I've raced, like J.R. Fitzpatrick's, Gary Elliott's, Frank Davies, all these guys that I've raced. And like, I've gotten lucky to race some of these people, and like, some of these guys are going to be Hall of Famers, and some of them are like in super stock, some of them are mini stock, stuff like that. But I'm like, you ever wonder like how many people are on that list that say, "Hey, I want to race Tim Tolton" and stuff like that, especially like up at Full Throttle because you're kind of like a local legend up there, right?
Yeah, yeah, I guess in a way. But I agree with you. A driver's a driver, and people do appreciate running against somebody who has a reputation, that's done a lot of winning, driven a lot of things, driven fast cars, whatever. I feel that any driver is a driver, and it shouldn't matter whether they go. I dropped from late model back to mini stock because I couldn't afford to run late model. I just couldn't do it. So I had a choice: get out or move back. And it was into something I'd never driven before. And I had a blast. I loved it. And I think everybody I raced against enjoyed it. I wasn't hearing a lot of complaints about, oh, you're too experienced. No, you drove a late model. You shouldn't be doing this. I don't remember hearing that.
Yeah. And the thing is, I've always found it's the most fun when you kind of drop back a little bit because like you're when you're in late model, it's a full-time job to maintain the cars. and you're sitting working like 40 hours a week on the car. By the time you freaking maintain it, pack bearings, change fluids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But you'll move back down mini stock. It's still work, but it's a lot less money, and it brings fun back in the sport for people sometimes that are losing the edge of enjoying racing.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, well, I was in late model and it was stressful. You know, you have to finish in a certain position or you can't carry on because you need more money for tires or you need more money for fuel. You need whatever it is. You need that. You have to finish well enough to keep on going. Mini stock was, I finished second last, had fun, didn't enjoy finishing second last, but it was no big deal.
Yeah.
I
You
can come back
still,
and do it again next week because it didn't cost me a lot.
yeah, you have a smile on your face and still beer in the fridge.
You know, mind you, mini stock's not like that anymore, but it
But
was then.
but compared to late models nowadays, it's a similar perspective, right? You still have your
Yeah.
bone stocks and stuff like that. So I'm gonna get into a couple of your fan questions here before I keep swirling out and going on rants. So you can't tell I have ADHD, can you?
No, no, not at all.
So we're gonna actually go first to your driver here and your buddy with Nathan Detweiler. Uh, as a person that Nathan looks up to, he wants to know who is someone you look up to and who is your hero in racing.
Oh, wow. Uh, I mean, I look up to all racers. I appreciate everybody out there in the racing community. I want to see the racing survive for many, many more years. I don't have any particular one person that I look up to. I think it's obvious when, if I ask you to drive my car, I look up to you. It's quite obvious. Past heroes, I think that's pretty obvious too, that Dale Earnhardt was my man. I don't have a favorite driver in NASCAR anymore. I've got drivers I respect. I got some that I don't respect for various reasons. And the same in local racing. But I look up to everybody that gives it a try.
All right, and then the next one I'm going to ask you here is from Justin Hart. He wants to know what is your favorite memory from racing at Peterborough Speedway in the limited late model, and do you ever look back on the points championship with his dad, Don Hart?
I try not to. It was frustrating. Um, I enjoyed the whole season. I enjoyed racing against Don the previous season. That made me try a whole season there. The traveling, I may very well still be paying for it. I'm not sure. Definitely developed a lot of debt traveling to Peterborough every weekend, but it was a good season, really competitive. We were back and forth, leading the points, and neither one of us got very far away from the other at any time. I really appreciate Don and the clean racing. Everybody up there that I raced against at that time. I don't look back. I guess I do look back on it all the time. What could I have done to make it any different? But there was situations that was just out of my control, and that's the way it goes. You know? So you win some, you lose some.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you got it.
yeah, that's racing, right? You could sit there and be like, "Oh, I changed this," but if you change that, you could be involved in a wreck in the next corner. There's,
And that's what happened.
but as I said, you could change in it something that happened, and be like, "Oh, I would have made this pass here," but that could have meant like a tire blew or something.
Yeah.
There's You can look back on it, but you'll never know the actual true results unless you basically live in the moment. You do it then.
Mhm.
You so I've always lived with I don't want to say the fear of wrecking the car, but I know exactly what the right front fender costs.
Yeah.
So like I try to sit there and I'm more passive, I think, than some drivers in super stock, especially because like I don't run spotters or nothing like that. So I've always had the philosophy if I make the call to stay up or stay down, right, for I don't want someone to feel bad because my car got wrecked or something. Like I want that to be my decision.
Mhm.
And at the same time, if you don't have the same spotter week in, week out, I find it gets very um inconsistent on what they tell you. So anyway, that's the two fan questions I'm going to ask you, and we're starting to run a little bit lower on time here. So I'm going to give you a few moments here so you can thank your sponsors that help you get to the track every week you head out, and you can bring up any of the social media pages you have or like your YouTube pages and stuff like that, and let us know where we can find you this season.
Okay, anybody who's interested in following us, we have our Black Magic Racing page on Facebook. Um, uh, Black Magic _3 on Twitter, if I remember right. We're also on Instagram. We don't really use much of any other social media. Those are our main ones. Probably not young enough to get into some of them.
Get you into TikTok.
Yeah, yeah. I've been hearing a lot about that and how I should get it. I don't know. I'll probably end up trying it someday. And I'd like to thank everybody who's helped me over the years. My family has been a huge help. Very supportive. Uh, Sponsors last year and carrying on again into this year. Speedy Auto Service in Guelph had a couple of our bone stocks there getting repairs done over the winter. He's looked after me very well. Dipple's Family Garage in Drayton. He's helped me so much with my OSS car and staying on top of the program and kind of motivating me. He's been very helpful. Engines from Hal, always make sure that we've got an engine that's doing what it's supposed to do in the car. Looks after us. He's been with us for many years. Appreciate him hanging around. We reconnected with an old friend and previous crew chief actually just this week, and he's interested in sponsoring us moving forward. He was living out east and he's moved back and he's restarting his business from a few years ago around a house contracting, and he's going to be on board with us and helping us out where he can.
Right.
And of course, there's stickers and scuffs. And how about the Feeney Call?
I got some. Are you at Motorama this weekend?
I am there. Yes,
I,
I'll be
I
there.
will. I'll be there Friday, Saturday, possibly Sunday. I don't know yet because I have bowling in the morning. I'll drop you off some stickers for your car,
Awesome.
especially since you got that nice Feeney Call blue on that Studebaker now.
Yeah, oh yeah, it is too, isn't it?
It is. Nathan probably picked that just for advertising reasons. All right, I want to thank you for joining me, and hopefully you had a great time. We'll definitely have to get together, talk more racing stories, but bet you there's a few stories we can't say on air either. And I hope we get to race each other again soon.
I hope so too. Thanks. I appreciate the time.
Everyone's gets a spot and everyone gets time, and I said it's one of those things that I appreciate you guys coming on, especially with me being newer. It's yeah, I haven't even been doing this a year yet, so the first few months were like, you want to come on the podcast? Who are you? And now it's kind of it's a fun gig where it's less stressful. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like racing. You get into like you get the like, what do I need to do? And it's like all of a sudden you get in the flow and it starts working and it's less stressful and it's easier. And now I just got to print stickers and smile.
Well, I appreciate you letting me come in and join you. It was an enjoyable time.
Yeah,
Love chatting.
I said we'll sit there and we'll chat more at Motorama. We'll talk racing stories and maybe some horror stories about racing, but those usually involve a lot more swearing.
You bet.
All right, have yourself a great night.
You too. Thank you.
Well, I hope you enjoyed another podcast with me and our guest. And I would like to ask you after sticking through the video for this long, to like, subscribe to the channel, like the video, maybe post a comment or two, let me know. Maybe you want me to ask some questions to the next guest, or more questions you want for the guest we just had on, or yeah, let's just like, subscribe, hit the little notification bell that helps the channel out. We're trying to grow, trying to get more views, trying to be more seen. The more we're seen, the more it helps the drivers, the more it helps me with like sponsors and etc. like that. So if you're liking what you're seeing, like I said, a couple little button clicks, away we go. And until next week, we'll see you at the track.